Hello, guys. Welcome. Welcome to another episode of Ripster Daily Trade Recaps and Teachings. All right, guys. So, all you guys have seen the bloodbath overnight and the bounce this morning. So today was a little different, guys. Our focus was just on the marketplace. Our focus was on the market and market-based plays. We just wanted to focus how to better navigate a day like today where everything is gapping down so much. Was decent day. I didn't really do a lot. We had a big winner on our, personally for me, was the QQQ calls, and but the market did trade a lot of other names. We traded NVDA, Tesla longs, AMD, and Bitcoin coin MSTR, and the semiconductor name. So community overall did really good today. We were long biased all day since morning. We had some short scalps middle of the day. We will recap it. So today's video will be little different. I'm just gonna do a lot of market analysis, look at where we are, how we handle this morning sell off, what was my thinking, and we'll go from there. So for the introduction part, not going to do too much introduction. I'm just going to let everybody know who's new to me that these trading recaps, these teachings are all from my community. Any idea I share on Twitter or any idea shared on YouTube. We usually share a full game plan every day and a pre-market levels, pivot levels on the daily trade stocks, and then crypto stocks. We have a plan every day. We did have a game plan today, but again, most of the focus was on the market. SPY, MSTR, bonds, QQQ, VIX was a big plan on our plan today. We'll discuss that. So I'm usually on a voice first few hours in my community. I will show you my timestamp guidance on how we went through the day today, and we'll look at all of our trades. So let's start. So let's start with looking at the market. So what market was doing today? Let's see here. So we talked about VIX. We have been talking about VIX for some time now. So we know last week we discussed in the community on Friday that we are not going to hold any swings overnight. There's a lot of risk in the market, and Japan market just imploded. Bitcoin and cryptos just imploded, and we were gapping down huge this morning. And if you guys remember, I retweeted these calls. These were 12 million in VIX calls that somebody bought. We watched it on Friday, and then VIX today this morning, the VIX was at 60, almost at $60. So VIX today was almost at $60. We have not seen these levels, not even since COVID. And when VIX is this high, there's too much volatility. When VIX is this high, the spreads are too wide, options are super expensive. The things are a little crazy. The range increases, your stop levels have to be increased. And if you see that SPY this morning, it almost hit 10% correction level. Let's look at Qs. Where did we hit? So let's look at Q's price range here. See how low did we go? Yeah, so Qs were almost down 16%, right? Close to that big 20% level of correction, which would, if we had 20% correction, it would take us to much lower. I don't think we get there, but definitely we had this morning. We were down over 16% on the correction side. So market, so we don't know, is it the bottom yet? We don't know. VIX is still elevated. When I talk about VIX, see how we're looking at VIX here. VIX has broken out of all the levels, and even today it closed so strong. When VIX is this high level, we're still in a bearish market. The trend doesn't change in one day. Yes, we had some bounces. We'll talk about it, but with the VIX such an elevated level on VIX, we are not out of woods yet. This is a big breakout on VIX this morning. Our plan was simple today. When we came into the markets this morning, the plan was simple. If VIX drops under $50, then we'll get a relief bounce. If we look at that, what happened today, what was bought up in this sell-off, you see they were buying the semiconductors right from the morning open. they started buying the semiconductors. You can see the the semiconductors were the first ones that were they started to push up, and they were one of the like the top top sectors which were bought. So semiconductors they started to buy right up at the open. The banks looked weak, but even they were finally bought up later in the day. Crypto was also bought up, and even though crypto closed really low, but coin and MSTR was definitely bought up. So definitely we saw the buyers coming in during the day, but we made a big move into this resistance. We will talk about this resistance, and then we reversed in the midday. VIX bounced again, and then we are gapping up now. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We still have Iran Israel war thing, but market doesn't really care about it. Market doesn't think there's going to be Iran attack, so we are gapping up after hours. So we'll see how tomorrow goes, but this is where we are today. I don't think we are out of the woods. We want to see this level on SPY, this level on SPY. We want to see that this pullback hold here, this region should hold. We don't even want a straight, I mean, we can probably push straight up as well into this previous support and reject, maybe fill the gap or something. But what we really want to see is the market just consolidate in this region. Then this area that we just made a low becomes our risk level, right? We want to see that it's pull, consolidate, go sideways. Then we can see that market is this, it's actually a bottom of the market, which we don't know yet. One day bounces doesn't mean anything. And we also want the VIX to break back under 30 and fade back to 20, so we feel like yes, this is time to get long, get back up. But I don't know that yet, right? There's a lot of macroeconomic things that's happening around the world. USD Japan, the carry trade, a lot of the macroeconomic stuff is going around. Then there are calls for the rate cuts, and if I don't think the rate cuts is a good decision right now. It might make things worse, but we'll see what happens. But we definitely navigated today well, and I'm going to just walk you through what was our mentality in the morning, what was my guidance, and how did we use the system. Our pivot levels were very important today. If you see these pivot levels, I'm going to refer to these throughout the day, the levels that we provide in the morning. So we're going to watch those levels as well and see how good those VIX levels worked out. I'm just going to discuss about VIX. So VIX, we had two levels this morning. We had 50 and we have 55. The plan on VIX was simple. The market, right? The plan on VIX was if VIX drops under 50, we can get some relief bounce, and that'll give us some confidence to long everything. And we use the clouds with the VIX to long the stuff. And right away, if you see that VIX started to break down right at open, 55 and 50, and then it faded all the way to 40s, a little bit jump, and then it faded all the way to 30s, which was our MTF support bounce. And then it bounced off that MTF clouds, and we got our rejections, and we will talk about how we locked our profits, and we moved out. But I really wanted to mention that how pre-market planning on how to use the VIX helped us manage the long side today. We were not short, we were long at the open. So let's discuss what trades I took and what trades the community was taking, and we'll go one by one. So we're gonna start talking about SPY and QQQ. Although my focus today was mainly QQQs, right? Because semiconductor was strong in the morning. When first thing I noticed when we were holding up the level. So let's see. Let's see what was strong here. So you see that the first thing that tweeted in the morning was they're buying semis, right? They were selling the banks, but then they started buying banks as well. But they were buying semis right out of the gate. When I say they, it's the investors, the institutions, it's me, it's you, it's everyone, right? It's the market. So they were buying it. But our plan initially, let's look at SPY QQQ. What were our two levels? 507, 503 was a support level, then Q's was 513.50. So those were our two support levels right here. Let's see here. Q level was 413 level as well. That was our support level, and then we had another level on Qs was this 420 level, right? So as long as this 420 level holds, I can't be short. And as long as this level of the SPY level we had was 507, 507.80 and 503.40, this area holds, we cannot be short, because market can very well pull back here and bounce, pull back here and bounce. So that was one of our bias tools to use. Definitely, I warned everyone that do not buy right at the open. Just be careful, watch. Right. A lot of the investors wanted to buy their stocks. That's fine. A lot of investors bought AMD, scaling in at 120s. But my point today was not to make any rash decisions, and we are trying to trade here, and not to just get sized in and get too much biased in something. So let's see what happens. So as soon as the markets opened, maybe I can show you here. Let's see if I can. So as soon as market opened, my first guidance to the community was that market is holding up. So market was holding up because why? How could I tell it's holding up? Because it was pushing over the pivot levels and the 512 clouds, because I had my resistance levels as well on the market, right? We had our resistance levels of 515 and also the 512 EMA clouds. So market was pushing over 512 clouds. So you see here, I tell everyone that market is holding up, and then my focus my my focus was focus was on Qs, because they were buying the semis. So I started 1/3 size on Qs when I saw this strength on QQQs. Let's go back to our levels, 428. So as soon as I see that level breached, we know it's not a time to short. It's not time to be short, because we are pushing over the level, and then we're pushing over our 428 level, and pushing over 512 clouds as well. So at that time, I took 1/3 size on calls. I had like 432 calls, and I think initially I had 430 calls as well. Then I saw the continued strength, and then I added a little more on my calls. So I doubled my size from 1/3 size. I added to half size, right? If you usually add 50 contracts, I started with 10, 20, added 10, 15 more to just because I was getting the confidence that yes, we're gonna push, right? So my first target was 432 when I added those calls. And then we logged some profits in the further push into 10 a.m. and then we started to flag. Market pulled back and held this. You see these Ripster clouds. Market held these clouds. So this is telling me that market is going to hold. A lot of folks were panicking when we were pulling right here, but we don't need to panic, because our system is, there's no stops unless we break under this level. You see this, the clouds, and I told everyone that we should make a next leg up. We should make a next leg up, and then we finally pushed over 433.15. Then we did push to 437s, and that's where we took profit, and then we come back and we flag in that area. I did. I can actually show you on the Twitter as well. On the Twitter, I gave nice guidance. So you see that, right? We were already long. More on Qs. SPYs, I cut it when it was showing me this candle. More on Qs. So you see this how we are flagging here, and there's a 436 seller on QQs that needs to break, and then flag breaks out, and then we can hold, add more. You add on these pullbacks. You don't add on the flags. You add on this cloud pullbacks right here. SPY was not a great example, but QQQ was, and boom, we break the flag. And these things we covered in our Friday webinar as well. And easy, right? How much did QQQ goes from a 428 level? QQQs went $10 and then went $12, and we closed everything when we broke under this 512, and then we short scalped later. And something to note here was when VIX was breaking under 5050 and rejecting the 3450 clouds, that was giving me a confidence to hold my QQQ longs, right? Because semiconductors was strong, tech was strong. So definitely that was helping us, right? VIX broke 45, that was good long, and I continuous guidance. I mean, I can maybe I can show you guys here if you can see that screen. Let's see if I show you here. You see, I don't know if you can read it, but continuous guidance that we're gonna make next leg up. 436 was my next target, and then I told everybody to hold the calls. Let's see, and literally on bunch of the options made easy 100%, 150%. Although options were very expensive, but we still made very profitable trades. And based upon this, I was long QQQ because of course I would love to buy something long term as well, but my focus to trade QQQ was because I'm getting the range and I'm covering everything. Microsoft, Apple, AMD, NVDA, I'm covering all of those trades, just trading QQQs long. And you could, just like I covered in my webinar, you could long TQQQ went from like $50 psychological $50 level, and then it pushed to 54, and then it pushed to 56 again. All these things I discussed in Friday webinar. So this was a 50 psychological level on TQQQ, and you could buy this trade, and your stops at 49, $1 risk, and you could easily make $3 or $5 by the time we were done with this trade. So that's how a lot of people were long and were with me on QQQs, that we had a really nice day, and there was no reason to short. Why would I short if market is holding my cloud? Somebody DM'd me today, hey Rip, I was short all day and I got destroyed. Why would you short, right? We are already gapping down, and when there's no short when we turn back over here. Okay, so that's important. And the pre-market levels are so important. Your pre-market levels are the most important on a day like this, when we are down big. And you don't have to panic, you have to stay calm. And we didn't do anything first 10 minutes. You wait first 10 minutes, because if you are adding first 10 minutes of, okay, let's say you have conviction, you want to add a long-term position, then you size small. You don't like size crazy, you size small, and if you see the trend holding, you add up. So that's why we were going to talk about our other trades, NVDA, Tesla, how the confidence for the long on the semiconductors and NVIDIA came, because QQQ was strong, market was strong, and VIX was weak. Let's look at the semiconductors next. So now I'm going to look at semiconductors, right? SMH. So reason I want to look at semiconductors, because SMH controls the most of the semiconductors ETF, and if that ETF is strong, we know that semis are good longs. And I showed you my tweet when I said they are buying semiconductors. So semiconductors confirmed long when it pushed over this 512 crowd of 203 area, then pushed over 3450 clouds and pushed all day. So that's confirming me that I can long the semiconductors. Now let's go back to see some of the semiconductors. So any semiconductor you take, we maintain a list of semiconductors, right? Look at Qualcomm. So Qualcomm pushed over 3450 clouds from 153s, and there was enough longs there in Qualcomm. AVGO pushed over the clouds, held pre-market lows. Again, the importance of pre-market lows, and this is the level that you break. So AVGO also we had in our pre-market sheet, right? So you can clearly see there are some resistance levels at 136, 6 areas, 140 areas. There are a lot of resistance levels, and once they were breached, it continued to push. Then we had ARM, similar semiconductor. Once it pushed over 512, 3450, it pushed all day long. These are just the examples of the various semiconductors that you could long today. SMCI, another example. If you look at our SMCI, our levels were 550, and once that 550 level was breached, SMCI was another good long, right? Because we know QQQ long, tech long, SMH long. So these are the some levels you could execute, right? That's what I'm trying to teach here, right? Our focus is never giving buy, sell, blind alerts, but teach people the confidence, right? You could easily risk the low of the day, and here's the thing, guys. When volatility is so high, you cannot risk $2, $3, $4, $5 in stock like SMCI. Your risk has to be like $10 or more, because you are trying to make $30, $40, $50, right? If you risk $10 or $15, SMCI went from 555s all the way to 600s. You made $50, $60 if you risk $15. That's how the risk reward works, right? So that's how risk reward works. Now let's talk about NVIDIA, right? While I was focused on QQQs, I tried to guide my community through NVIDIA as well. So let's see. Early in the morning, I saw a lot of call buying on NVIDIA. I told everybody a lot of call buying on NVIDIA on the long side. And from my mentions on the long side, NVIDIA continued to push. And not only that, we had our some levels of resistance on NVIDIA, which were 95.35, and we were 100. And once it breached the 95.35 level, it continued to push right across that. And there was a call buying, the levels were breaching, 512s were long, and I gave a stop level of 96. And then Vin came in, he started to take the long as well, and he was risking, higher levels. And then from the 96 stops, NVIDIA pushed as well. There was a 100 breakout to 100 to 31. Then it'll finally push to 103 and 103 area. I told everybody to hold their longs on NVIDIA and Tesla. We'll talk about Tesla in a minute. But so that it was that simple, right? You look and you don't have to add let's say you are trying to add it. When it reclaims this, you add right here starter and you add into your positions. A lot of people were having problem with Thinkorswim today, but there were definitely some good movers that were happening here in the morning. So this was NVIDIA, guys. That was a trade today as well. We are only talking about our intraday trades. We will talk about the long term or the swing later. See how the tomorrow does. We are gapping up on NVIDIA again over like $3. That's interesting. So what I'm going to talk about is AMD. In the community, I was talking about these levels on AMD. The level on AMD was 90, right? And AMD was 120. You see, we talked about this 120 area last week. That's a great area to buy. The long term, and it's all about focus. What you want to focus on. I did not. I was too focused on my QQQ trades in the morning, but I did guide my community through the QQQ longs, AMD longs. So let's look at AMD. What were our levels? The breakout levels was 125 and 129. So once you see that 125 level that I gave in the pre-market breach, and I'm taking QQQ long, you can take that long. And once at 3450 confirmed, it's continuous long, and then it flags over MTF clouds and it continues to push. There's a reason I provide these levels, because those levels give you confidence, confirms your long side bullish bias, and there was no short. Right, AMD was super strong today. There was no short. It did pull back from 512 to MTF clouds for like 2 points. And when volatility is so high, guys, the range is super high. The stock range is super duper high. AMD is trading at like 8 ATR now. It's a huge ATR for like 100 30 $40 stock, right? And my thing is always is, if you missed it today, don't worry. It's not, if a trend really changes, we would have a lot of time to get things long, so no need to worry there. But AMD was definitely a good buy. I love it long term. Definitely a great stock, and good levels. We'll see if it comes back again and how tomorrow goes. But this was a long intraday. So let's look at Tesla. So what was our plan on Tesla? Plan on Tesla again was simple levels on Tesla. Again, our 190 was our resistance breakout, and right away Tesla broke out of that 190 level, and it continues to push as well. And I didn't get it in the morning, but the community, a lot of traders were long on Tesla, and but I did tell everyone, I saw the strength right at the open. I told everyone to get it on the pullback, has a room to 200, and and we hit 100, 200, and when the 200 broke out, then we even hit further, right? We went to like 203, 235s. It was a nice move on Tesla as well. Interesting move. No long-term position yet. Would this and AMD, I would definitely prefer these ones rather than NVIDIA. But because this is like it's up $20 from the the morning sell-off. These kind of opportunities are good, but you never know, right? And it's all about if you have already pre-planned to have a long-term position that I want to scale in at 185, it goes to 160, I will add more. That's how you add into your position. But the most of the move on all these names were first 20 minutes. Whoever the funds, investors, whoever was buying, they bought it and they were done in this first 20 minutes. That was where the main money was made with a lot of traders. But you can see that how it pulled down. Imagine you were long and you got scared and you got out, and then it pushed. So that's why we have to give time. So we have to give for 10-minute rule to trade long today. Don't have to find the bottom, right? Even if you added 190, 192s, that's fine, right? You don't have to find bottom. That's my biggest rule. I don't want to be bottom 185, 184. I can rather add bigger position here than trying to add smaller positions here and worried about that's going to fade down. But you have to understand the importance of pre-market lows. Anyways, Tesla was a nice trade in the community. We'll see how it goes tomorrow. So today we had, banks were weak this morning, and I saw the selling in the banks, and I tried to short it, and we did flush like a little bit right at the like $4 or $5, but then it came right back up. I saw the strength, I got out. It was working. We shorted it at the open, and it was working. Then it started to come back up, and then market was strong. I saw SPY is strong, and even though my stops were 450 right here, I did stop earlier, and then it continued to push, flag and push, right? That was a loser today, Goldman Sachs. Another one, though, that was a really liking this morning was our coin and MSTR. I really liked MSTR, but problem was the options were too expensive and they were too spready. It was much better trade in with the with the shares, right? Both coin and MSTR, because I saw that when MSTR held 1000, you see it bounced from 1028 and reclaimed the pre-market lows. Again, importance of pre-market lows. And we had our we had these our levels on crypto levels on MSTR and coin both, and you can see that 1152 was a good pivot and coin was 173 area. So coin breaks out of that 173 area and turns bullish, and that's where you can get long. Your stops can be somewhere here 166.21. And MSTR, I was on the voice, I was talking about it all day. I really loved this MSTR because of the range. The options were a little problem, but anyways, you see these levels that we provided in the pre-market, and so once the coin and MSTR pushed over that level, coin pushed another $20, and then MSTR as well pushed a decent amount. And there's still a lot of room on these things. Guys, to end the video today, short video, is that do not FOMO. Do not worry about if you miss the move. That's fine. Most of people miss the move. This move is not most of the retail investors, right? So a lot of short covering, a lot of institutes. Most of careful investors are like you. Everybody's waiting, for the confirmation. And because we don't have to find the bottom, that's why I keep repeating, you don't have to find the bottom. Most of our day trades today, we were not here. Nobody bought here. We were buying when this pre-market range was going. Look at anything, nobody got this. Tesla was this, right? I look at AMD, that was this area, clearly defined area, right? You look at NVDA, that was this defined area. So I just showed you the importance of this pre-market levels, pre-market range to long today, right? So you don't have to find this bottom. You can long this confirmation. So that's how you long, because then you have a clear defined risk level. If you try to add right away, then you can panic. You will be, you're not sure unless you have like super confidence or scaling in a position, because I believe in nothing is too low, right? Because for me, the system is still bearish. My system only turned bullish here, and that's where I want to enter. And this is the same thing which is relevant to NVIDIA, AMD, all the longs you did, and same thing that's relevant to QQQs, same thing relevant to any other semiconductor you take, all had these levels right here, where to long them, how to long these setups. So hopefully this helped you today. So next time there's sell-off like this, maybe you can use this guidance teachings from today. Take care, guys. Excited for tomorrow. Going to be fun week. See you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye.